Tonight is a good night. One of Adam Silver's youngest students is learning the proper finger placement in order to hit the keys. She's only 7 years old, but she's starting to get the hang of it. Adam Silver, owner and founder of the JamPad music program, has been running his program for the last 10 years. The JamPad is a place where autistic children and youth can come, play instruments, and make friends.
I'm Adam. I'm from Toronto. I've lived in this area for about 10 years and in this neighborhood for 2 years. The neighborhood I'm talking about is Dovercourt Park. I have worked at the school in the neighborhood. I teach a lot of students in the neighborhood, and I run a music studio. I also do a lot of music therapy inspired programs for kids and adults with disabilities, with the main purpose being just sharing the joy of music and sharing it together in a unique social setting. It's particularly been beneficial for my friends with autism who are often not included in music experiences, both in school as well as out of school. A lot of kids with disabilities, their families are really stretched thin financially, and it seems like music lessons isn't high on the list of priorities when you need to pay for things like speech therapy and like personal care and emergency respite work. Because the funding is so little to stretch out over an entire year, families that have workers often lose their workers because they can't really afford to pay them an amount that's, and I can tell you the amount of funding that people get really has not raised, has not gone up in proportion with inflation. For I first started receiving payment for respite work back in 2008, and it just like $5,000 to $10,000 for the whole year, and it really hasn't changed that much. There's there have been certain areas that get funding, like I know ABA therapy was getting a ton of funding for a while, which is great, but that was also like the only thing that was getting, like families could get $20,000 to $30,000 a year, which is great. Like that's how much you need for a whole year of services. Honestly, more if you have like sort of multiple health needs. But where does that kind of excludes families with other disabilities? Down syndrome families have no use for ABA therapy. For every one of those families, you're looking at more expenses down the road. By not, like, the early intervention can, in many cases you can have so many breakthroughs where a lot of kids gain so many life skills and independence that they wouldn't have gotten without that early intervention. And so by not getting appropriate funding at an early age, you kind of set them up for life for many more health problems and mental health challenges down the road.
Could you tell me what some of them would possibly be?
Like there's a very high, and it's not really talked about, but there's a very high proportion of adults with autism who develop other varieties of mental illness, like particularly schizophrenia. They're much more prone to that. So many of these families are so isolated because like so much of their time is dedicated to supporting their kid. Through the music, we kind of are building a community of people that enjoy being around each other and want to like continue to help build each other's social circles, which is so important for people with disabilities.
And part of that community is Paul Chapman, a country aficionado who's been coming to the JamPad every Sunday for the last 10 years. He tells me he can chat, but first, he must rock.
My name is Paul Chapman. I'm 36 years old. I was 35, but now I'm turning 36. And I live in the greater city of I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And nice to meet you. Coming here and see Adam. See Adam is seeing Adam every weekend just coming here and just jamming and just having a lot of fun. It's the best thing for anyone out there who for anyone out there who thinks they can't do anything. You're wrong, because guess what? When you put your when when you put when you put your mind to it, you can do anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Paul Chapman, the country store, signing off.
So, what has the Ford government said and done since taking office in 2018? Here's Doug Ford's most recent comments that he made in June just this year.
But when we took office, I'll never forget, they said basically there's no money left in the autism file, and I was only there for about a month. Right away, I said we need to double it. We increased it to $600 million.
Fighting for Families is the Ontario Autism Coalition, whose mission is to secure permanent, scientifically supported, government-funded therapy, treatment, and services for individuals with autism and their families. I spoke with one of the OAC's board members and self-advocate, Philip Lerner, to decipher the semantics around funding coming from the Ford government.
I will say I do know that the element that they are saying is actually true. Funding has been doubled. The problem isn't the amount of funding. The problem is how we're using that funding.
Can you tell me?
Basically, back in the early days of the Ford government, we're talking about 2019, they were doing things that were making services not needs-based. They were depending how much funding you got based on things like age, based on things like family income. This is not the needs-based services we're after. We want the only determinant of how much funding you get to be purely based on how much services you need. Do you know how many kids are on the wait list right now?
It's over 50,000?
Yeah, we're approaching 60,000. We're in the 58,000 range. We can't fit all these kids into Rogers Center.
What are some of the consequences that this can lead to if people are not getting the services that they need?
Well, there's several levels of consequences here. First off, to the child themselves, these therapies are there to teach you how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
They can provide so much. And if they don't have that opportunity, which starts from services at a young age, the world's robbed of that potential.
I'm Rahma Shafi. Thank you for listening to Say News Podcast.